Hey everyone, it's Jake of Jake's Metal Chat. Hope you're all well and welcome to episode 91 of my Metal Vault, where I will be exploring and showing you my favorite albums within the world of metal. As well as talking about the albums, I will also be talking about the band, so a brief history and any releases leading up to the album that I have picked. And I know these guys are playing this year in London in September at Cosmic Void, and I'm going to make a trip not just to see these guys but to also see another band that I've covered on here, Asphyx, and some excellent early 90s black and death metal right here, and some absolutely brilliant stuff right here. A lot of people in the VC will know this band, but for anyone not familiar, you're looking for a new band, you're looking for a new album to listen to, look no further than Swedish legends Necrophobic with their 1993 debut, The Nocturnal Silence. Brilliant, brilliant stuff right here. This is the Hammerheart Records re-release, originally released on Black Mark Production, which is now a closed label. They specialize within death metal, black metal, and of course this is one of the many releases released on that label. Of course, going to show off what's inside of this release of the album. So we've got the band pictures right there, and we got a picture of a symbol right there, CD right in the middle, and if I can get it out and shine one of the many lights here on it, there we go. So you got the logo right there, album title, the Hammerheart Records logo right there. Just bring that a bit more forward, and of course we have the logo right there, along with another band picture. Very good stuff right there, and let's get that in. The booklet with the artwork on there, of course, along with the songs, of course. Got some lyrics right there, and I think there's more lyrics here before I show off the band picture. Right here, band picture there, which was the one you saw inside of the case. Thank yous there, and of course, band picture. And the only two members from this lineup that are still in the band now, of course, original member Joachim there, Anders on vocals. Tobias is no longer in the band. He hasn't, when I looked him up, hasn't done any more music since. And of course, Black Moon right there. Of course, you see his real name there, David. Of course, passed away back in 2013. And of course, went on to form with Lord Orriman, Dark Funeral. Of course, a band that I have seen live. And of course, if you've heard these guys and Dark Funeral, you know how different both bands sound. Where these guys mix death and black metal, Dark Funeral full on in your face black metal. And yeah, before Black Moon formed that band, he formed this band. And what a band it is. And before I chat about this album in its entirety, let's talk about the band Necrophobic. They are from Stockholm, Sweden. They formed in 1989 by Black Moon and Joachim to create a darker kind of death metal than what was being made at the time. And of course, came from the Slayer song. As we all know, on Rain in Blood, one of the songs is called Necrophobic, and what an absolutely brilliant song that is. And yeah, these guys here are currently on the label Century Media Records. But before they joined that label, They released three demos from 1989 to 1991, two of which featured bassist vocalist Stefan Zander, and he was on the Realm of Terror demo from the 22nd of September 1989. That was the only track on that demo, and not sure how many copies were released of that because it just said on cassette, and it usually will say how many copies there were. And the last one that was on that was released in March of 1990 called Slow Asphyxiation, which is a demo that I have heard, and it's a really good demo. And if you've heard this album right here, Nocturnal Silence, you know that Anders' vocals are cross between death and black metal, as with Anders, sorry, Stefan's are more just straight up death metal. And speaking of Anders, before he joined the band, he did the artwork for this demo, which is really cool as well. So doing artwork for a band that had a different vocalist at the time, and then of course he went on to join the band later on. So after Stefan left, he when I need to remember when he left now. So let's go on here. Go on, Stefan Zander. He left 1990, so it's only in the band for a year. And then from there in 1991, in April of that year, and this is when they were on the label Wild Rags Records, three track demo. 5,000 copies were made, and I'm not sure how many were sold, but that was how many were made. Of course, the two primary members on there were, of course, Black Moon and Joachim. For guest members, they had Stefan Harvick. I hope that's how it's pronounced. Of course, he was also in another band called Shematoy, underground death metal, and a band, if you've not checked them out, definitely check them out. Some excellent, excellent death metal right there. If you love your death metal, guaranteed you're going to love them. And also another Joachim called Joachim Stable. Of course, is no longer doing music now. Was of course did let's rewind that back. Of course, did guest bass on that album and was in a band called, I hope I get this right, called Hats Heads. I think that's how it's pronounced. I have checked these guys out before. Very underground death metal right here. And of course went on to change the name to Black Shine, which was more thrash, death and roll. But yeah, so very busy around that time. And then from there, so the last thing they released on Wild Rags Records in January of 1993, their first EP, The Call, which I have heard, great, great stuff. And one of the songs is also featured on the debut, which I will get to in a minute. And well, two tracks on this EP are on the debut album. And of course, that was the last thing Stefan Harvick was on. And then from there, Anders joined the band in 1990. Well, he joined the band in 1992, but was not on the EP for The Call, that is. So the first thing he featured on was, of course, the debut, Nocturnal Silence, which had two guest members. So Mikke Jansen, who, of course, covered his band Unanimated, still doing music to this day. And it is in five bands. Only four that are on the archives. The other one is not. And then from there we had Richard of Dismember, and also he's in the band Murder Squad, and of course does vocals for Unanimated. Well, did vocals from 88 to 91, and then bass from 1991, 93, 96, and 2000 onwards. And yeah, of course, one of the other guest members on this album, and some great vocals he does have as well. And of course, there was for the engineering, there was Lars Linden, I hope that's how it's pronounced, was in bands as well as recording, mixing, producing for bands as well. So, like I said, Nocturnal Silence, and for At the Gates with Fear I Kiss the Burning Darkness. Cemetery with that album as An Evil Shade of Grey and Godless Beauty. Syntax, their demo Under the Blackened Sky, as well as Internal Decay, Flesh Crawl, and just get another band that a lot of people know because he's got a lot on here. Necro Death, there's another band there that is, I think, still going. Let's just quickly look them up before we get back to Necro. No, they split up back in, well, last year. Of course, they Italian Black Death thrash metal legends. And Lars sadly died in May of last year. And for photography, there's Jock Stable, who did photography. So I'm guessing for one of the band pictures, I'm not sure which one. And then there's Corinne, who also has done photography for this album. This was the only thing she's done band related. And then from there was Thomas Skogsberg. Everyone knows Skogsberg. Everyone knows Thomas Skogsberg. Has done music for so many bands. Of course, just mentioned Necrophobic, Amorphis, At the Gates, and Carnage, Carbonized, and Cemetery, Syntax, Ceremonial Oath, Comic Con. I mean, I've mentioned these bands before in all the other episodes of this, and I can go on forever. Dismembered, Disharmonic Orchestra, Entombed, Epitaph, Exhumed, which of course is not the one with Matt Harvey, a different Exhumed that's no longer going, and Catatonia, just saw there, Interment, and Grave Bomb, Grotesque, Grave, the list goes on. If you know the name Thomas Skogsberg, you're going to know what bands he's done. And there's Urban, who, of course, is the guitarist for General Surgery since 2015. And, of course, past bands, Cemetery, as well as Nasm and Regurgitate, which are gore grind, yeah, Swedish gore grind legends. No longer going, of course. He did the cover art for, sorry, that upside down, for this album right here, as well as the second album, Dark Side. And finally, for the logo, this one right here is Johan Hansen. Of course, did it for Dark Side and the third Antichrist. So for their 93 album, 97 album, 99 album. So that is who performed on the album and did various, so for engineering, producing, engineering, mixing, photography, cover art, logo. So let's get on to the songs themselves, and I've left some notes here. So there's 9 tracks overall, and the songs, The Awakening, which is their first song, which is setting the tone for the album with its nice opening, because you hear a lot of various amounts of synths in here. There's definitely yeah, because as well as playing guitar on here, Black Moon also played keyboards, so a lot of synth is added into this album throughout various parts of it. So that is setting the tone for that whole album because they're all dark and heavy. So excellent guitars, bass, drums. Is the sound is equally balanced with the vocals because the vocals has given much more of a darker edge to the music. And so from Awakening, you go Before the Dawn, which is keeping that level of almost that uneasiness because it's making you feel uneasy. And then from there to Unholy Prophecies, still keeping that blend, that nice, even equal blend of guitars, bass, drums, and vocals, along with the Nocturnal Silence, the debut, the title track of the debut, which is I've noted here, along with one other song that I'll mention in a minute. It has that nice guitar opening, very, very much more like I say, more of a dark melodicism to it, and then it just kicks right in, and then of course Anders' vocals just like he's just kind of screaming out in pain a little bit, so some anguish around those vocals, and then into that Inborn Evil, another track just carrying that level of dark overtones, that melodic atmosphere going, and then the Ancient's Gate, still much keeping that uneasiness going throughout this entire album. And then Sacrificial Rites, still, and you're getting throughout this a lot, getting those blends of keyboards mixed in there from time to time. And then another one of my favorite tracks, along with the Nocturnal Silence and Unholy Prophecies, is Father of Creation, which was also on the Core EP. Of course, both of those are very different from each other, and this is where you get Mikhail Janssen on vocals, where he does where if I get up the lyrics, and this is the longest song on the album, clocking in at 6 minutes and 2 seconds, which it says here vocals and last screen by Janssen himself, where he said where if you go on this album on the Metal Archives, you can see where it's pinpointed where he comes in, and he's bringing some added extra amount of aggression to this song, along with Anders' vocals. And then to finish off the album, before I actually finish off with the last song, Anders and Nikkei, their vocals absolutely complement each other on Father of Creation, hence why it's one of my favorite songs to listen to. And the solos in this absolutely brilliant as well. And bass is very present throughout the entire album. Turned up that good amount in the mix. Drums just again, everything's turned up in on the album, so you can hear all the drums, you can hear the double kick, everything. And so to end this album, you got Where Sinners Burn, which just ends that uneasy, dark atmosphere of this album beautifully, and just some excellent stuff right here. So yeah, it's just got a lot of great things going for it. Because every song, there are albums where I can just usually I will repeat the same thing for certain songs, but sometimes one song might have something completely different from the other. But you definitely get keyboards throughout this album, but in various different songs. But it adds on to the music, and of course, when you hear a lot of bands that mix death and black metal together, no, well, I'd say about like 9 times out of 10, you would definitely hear keyboards on the album, even if it's a member who's in the band full time, or they got someone to come in to do the keyboards, or someone within the band is playing the keyboards and adding a little bit more atmosphere to an album that already kicks absolute ass. It's absolutely brilliant stuff. And if you've not checked out this album, I highly recommend that you do. It is heavy, it is dark, and it definitely blends that melodicism in with that dark atmosphere. Vocals are on point, instruments are on point, all blended well together. And yeah, just an absolute timeless masterpiece right here. And there's so many more like this that I will be featuring in this series, as you know. So if you've not heard of these guys, do check them out if you love that blend of death and black metal. Necrophobic and the Nocturnal Silence. And that is it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching this episode and for watching this series. If you have been watching this from the very start, it means a lot. And so many more to cover in the future, because to go back to my list, I got at least, I could take that off now. Got at least one, two, three, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to do this year. And it's a nice mix of black metal, death metal, thrash metal, heavy metal. So there's something there for everyone. So thank you very much for tuning in. Do all the usual. If you enjoyed this content, do like, share around, comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with not just this series, but with my other videos as well. So once again, thank you very much for tuning in. I've been Jacob Jake's Metal Chat. Do keep that banner of metal well and truly high, and I will see you all in another episode of my Metal Vault.